I would even go as far as saying that if CPF board cannot design this new scheme, similar to CPF Life, where people can just go to CPF board's website, go through the FAQ, go through the calculator, and can already make a decision, and they need someone else to come and intervene and pay the additional commission, I think it's a failure in the design.
I don't think we need to see economic growth and well-being as either or. It shouldn't be that if you want economic growth, therefore you have to be prepared to give up. It's yes and, right?
Be ready to constantly switch careers, adopt outward-looking perspective, all form relationships and start families in a timely manner, be ready to support an aging population and somehow drive 4 to 6% GDP growth all at the same time. So this comes from someone in their early 20s. I ask you guys to think back to your own early 20s. Did you care about, were you immersed in this narrative?
If you were PM, right, how do you reconcile this element of economic growth and self-sufficiency? Welcome to Chills with TFC Budget Debate Special. So I am your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut. And today I am gonna take this time to talk about this very, very important topic that I think most working professionals go through, which is structural anxiety. I think many people are very anxious. I know, very fiddy fella, right? Sounds like very high MIT, but I think it leads to all sorts of things, from retirement anxiety, to not wanting to start a family, to every bits of how you choose your life and all that. And I believe that this is the one theme that is at the back of everybody's minds, and is affecting how you decide your life. And I think this round's budget had some, big policy adjustments to hope to kind of solve this thing lah. So I got a bunch of people that are all great in their field to come in to jab at this problem from different angle. So yeah, joining me, Alex.
Hello, I'm Alex, actuary by training, former regulator, former CFO and chief actuary of insurance company.
Okay, and then recently very bored, nothing to do. You say what?
Getting a bit busier this month.
A bit busier, okay. Yeah. So how is your post-retirement life or your FIRE life?
No, in fact, a lean FIRE can actually get very boring if you don't have other interests outside of work, which a lot of professionals, right, they are too welded into their corporate roles. And once they become retired, then they lost all the structure.
You see, retirement also become anxious.
Yeah. So now try to come back and look for some permanent work so that someone would help me create some structure around my day. Yeah.
Okay, fair. And we have fellow panelists.
Hi, I'm Kalpana. I work as a senior research fellow at the Institute of Policy Study. My area of research at the moment is mainly on relationships, families, gender, dating, children.
How do you research those things? It's always seen as feel, airy. How is this done?
I mean, you can do it in many ways. So quantitative work is very kind of big picture, what's happening at the population level, how many people are doing X, Y, and Z. The work that I do is ethnographic. So it's basically I go and talk to people. I spend a lot of time, sometimes with the same people over a period of time, and collect data about how the types of decisions they're making, what's prompting them to do various things. And I work with colleagues who do some of the quantitative work, so I also understand it, and then we kind of put together a bigger picture, of what's happening in our society.
Okay, so are Singaporeans very anxious?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay, we'll go there later. Yeah. Okay, hold your horses. Yes. And Anthea.
Hi, I'm Anthea Ong. Not sure how to introduce myself.
I don't think you need to introduce yourself, right? Yeah.
I would just say that I'm just a very deeply concerned citizen, but also a very active one, wanting to make the world a better place. That's a bit fluffy, but I think as a former nominated member of parliament, also having spent time in the corporate sector in different leadership positions, and just kind of trying to integrate that, both the lived experiences as well as the understanding and the technical, know-how across the people, public and private sector, and see how we can bring not just experiences and understanding from the balcony, but go down to the dance floor, and then from the dance floor, go back to the balcony. And I think that's important as we mature as a society.
So since you're here and since you were on the dance floor, how do you rate the current dance floor?
The dance floor is super awesome here. As in physically, it's a beautiful space. And I was saying to Reggie, I've been here looking for furniture. But also just, being with, I think, Alex and Kalpana. And this is my first time, obviously, on Financial Coconut. Interesting because I started my career as a banker. It feels interesting to come back to this whole idea of financial literacy, which is what you're all about, which is very important.
Okay, so let's set the ground a little bit, right? Since we've got a whole bunch of cool people on set. So before we go into deep diving the topic, I just want to get your sense, you're like, I give you like a minute on like, how do you find the budget? Since we're all here, it can be outside of the scope of what we're going to discuss. So yeah, what is your take?
The two things I mainly look out for is financial discipline. Second is I don't want to see excessive intergenerational transfers that would disadvantage the next generation. So I think this budget, I really like it because both of these are met. They are projecting a good surplus, right? And also any transfers to the seniors is quite measured and quite means tested, so it won't burden the next generation. So I think that's good. The other phrase that I really like from PM's speech is that he said every Singaporeans who are willing to learn and adapt, and emphasis is mine, right, will continue to have a good job and earn a good living in Singapore, right? And I think that's my definition of what we is about. We all have to do our part, right? Instead of saying that, I don't want to adapt and don't want to learn and just let's raise everyone's taxes to finance my living. That's not a fair way to run a we society.
That is a whole podcast on its own. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great.
That's a whole podcast on its own. We'll go there in some bits. Yes. Anyone else?
The budget we've had recent budgets that are more sort of household focus or people focus, kind of an individual focus. This one is more kind of big picture focused, I think, more economy focused. And look, that's necessary from time to time. Not all budgets can be about the individual. That's one kind of reflection. The other reflection is in the areas that I mainly look out for in the family space. I feel like we are still very much just scratching the surface. And, so we've continued the $500 credits for children under 12. Like basically for parents, right? Every little thing is helpful. Okay, we live in a high cost environment. You ask anyone and they'll say, yes, I'm grateful for it, right? But it does not, I feel like it doesn't really address the structural underlying issues about people actually not wanting to be parents and also not really being interested in being in a relationship at all.
That's another podcast. we can do a whole season here. Everybody has a season. Yes, we'll get there. Well, in some shape or form, we'll get there. Yes,
I think it's a good segue from Kalpana. And this also follows from my time in Parliament, where my first budget, I already asked, why is mental health and well-being not at all feature? Because
and it's still not featured, right?
It's not. This latest one. So I was looking forward to it because we had, as you all know, launched for the first time the National Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy in 2023. And also, I think we have matured very much in sort of policy making and making sure we bring in intersectionalities, right? Instead of sort of seeing things in silos, because you can't. Because all of us are living, breathing human beings, and no one live a single issue life, right? So every policy that is made, that is calibrated or recalibrated, really has a direct impact on our well-being. And as you pointed out, this is going to be about why is there still anxiety, despite years and years of transfers, of supporting, being pro-business, supporting wage growth. Why do we have that? And I think part of it is that at the national level, and the budget being the largest national strategic plan, needs to start to bring in the lived experiences. So I'm really pleased that Kalpana is looking into that as a researcher, because I don't find that. And as much as we are disciplined in not, to Alex's point, pushing the fiscal debt to future generations, we must not also push the well-being debt to future generations. And we are, because what is glaringly missing is that we're not doing enough with the wealth inequality that has been surfaced in the occasional paper that MOF released just a couple of days before, right? And I know it's an uncomfortable thing, but it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. We have done really well, 60 years, 3 generations, we have accumulated wealth. So we should talk about that. How does that actually, it's not about effort anymore, because opportunities might not be about how much effort you put in, but how much assets and inheritance you have because of intergenerational wealth.
Yeah. I think in that occasional paper, the top 20% had a median average of about like 5 million, worth of assets, right? And 20% has owned more than the 80% below.
Yeah, combined.
Right? So combined. That's another podcast, right? So it's all very big topic, right? It's really how we kind of jab at it. But before I let you go, can you say something positive?
Hey, it's positive,
Yeah,
ma. I mean, okay,
like something like you like.
Oh.
Because I hear you on many podcasts. It's always like, this one can be better, that one can be better, which is fair, right?
Yeah.
We need to, but I want to hear something from you. It's like, okay, this one I think is good.
Oh, I think generally, and I would always do that, in giving a commentary or even a speech in Parliament, is to highlight what's good. But they already did, ma. So I thought, since I'm the last one sharing, there's no need to sort of repeat. But if you ask me personally, I mean, I like that, after we've gone through a few rounds, particularly since election is done and dusted, that we start looking at some of the structural shifts that we need to do. And I think this budget, to Kalpana's point, start to go a bit more macro. I understand that, the last couple of budgets, we had to be going more to the individual and the people, especially also, look, I'm a former parliamentarian. I want to understand also how some of these strategies work. But I think, it's important to come back to that discussion of, as a people, as a society, what are we willing to give up for more inclusive growth? Because we will give up some economic growth. We will have to get more challenged. So I like that this was quite straight out in terms of just, what are the challenges ahead and what some of the macro shifts that we're going to try to get into. And it's also nice to know that, the occasional paper came out before the budget to show us some of the movements that we've made, some of the progress that we've made.
And I think the budget, if you really go and look into it, you do see that over the past 5 years, there is a lot of structural change from the budget's optics, right? So like GST multiplied by 2 times in terms of revenue, right? And then I think corporate tax also went up close to 2 times. COE, went up by 4 times, total in the past 5. That's why the middle class cannot drive cars anymore. It's just, you're being priced out, right? So your quality of life is changing. That whole perception of like, what does it mean to, be middle class, be happy, be a professional. That whole thing, it's not like suddenly people just want to change out of the blue, right? Structurally, it is changing. When you cannot afford, then all these, you start to question yourself and all that bit. So that's me trying to take a jab at like, why are people so anxious, right? And I believe that it's because so many things are changing and what you perceived of the good life, or even the quality retirement, all the aspirations are changing, especially for the middle class, right? The numbers, don't make sense anymore. I think for a lot of people. So barring my jab, I just want to hear from everybody, like, why do you think after all this hard work for so many years, all these changes, policy update, before we talk about CPF, CPF is a big update, I know, yes. Before I talk about CPF, like, why are people so anxious? Is the good life still possible? Yeah.
Well, I think anxiety is usually driven by mismatch against expectation, right? And a lot of the expectation is sort of driven by consumerism and also, in the past, fairly accessible or fairly easy for people to access credit. So they can borrow based on their anticipated future income and salary.
It still is.
But
the prices are a runaway, right?
No, the prices has run away because everyone then used that front-loading all their future earning and bidding up the prices. So now their future earning capability may be hampered due to the change in technology. If everything has to be scaled back down again price-wise, it becomes very painful.
So to you, that is the main crux of the anxiousness?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah. Hearing from the rest?
Alex is absolutely right. If you take the psychological perspective of how we are anxious or we feel we're not going to be able to make it, we're never going to keep up. Yeah. Also, whether it's the Joneses or the Ongs and Lims, or the Lees, I think it's that feeling, right? So going back to which why I think the work that Kalpana does is so important. It's not just about the statistics. It's not but it's only the numbers that are telling us. It's also it's not how well we have done, but how do we feel about our lives now and future. And I think income, we all know income pays bills because it's quite sort of immediate and all of that. But I think, and that's why I'm saying I'm actually, okay, you also see, I don't give props, but the props I will give is this occasional paper by MOF is so important and so outstanding for the first time to raise the whole issue of wealth inequality to the national consciousness and to make this a national conversation. Because income pays bills, but actually, if you think about it, all of us think about wealth as giving that sense of stability. Even if you make a lot of money and the median income may have risen, but if your perception of stability and security now and future, and even future to your next generation, it's not there. And that narrowing runway, as Alex alluded to, then I think that anxiety is like a treadmill, right? You don't get out of it despite all these changes that are put in place. And then sometimes you also doubt yourself, like, what is going on? I hear so many people, including my own loved ones, saying, I feel so ungrateful when I keep saying that, I'm struggling, it doesn't seem to make ends meet, but I am, is this a first world problem? Am I just suffering from ingratitude when I feel this way? And I'm saying no, because the way you feel is real to you, right? And that anxiety is there. So this is why, for me, I feel like it's important as we start to measure how we do as a people, that we go beyond measuring. Props to you, Kalpana. We don't just measure how we're doing in real numbers in a material manner, but also measure things like psychological mobility. If we measure social mobility, which also has a relative component, let's measure psychological mobility. Let's measure our perceived sense of security. Right. Let's measure also the care burden.
They all tied together.
They all add up.
Yeah.
I mean, and also how time poor we are, right? The poverty of time. Don't just look at the poverty of our income, but the poverty of time. And then it comes back all to how we live as a person and as a people, as a family.
Just want to add on there, because sometimes, like what you said, the middle class feel a bit like, am I being ungrateful?
Yeah, lor.
Right? Like, I feel like I gaslight myself, right? Or like people gaslight
You also
me.
gaslight quite a bit,
gaslight myself. Yeah, okay, right?
By the social conditioning, yeah.
Exactly. But the numbers, when I look at it, right, substantiate why people are feeling very anxious, right? Because you are seeing prices run away, not just from things that are like HDB flats, right? But like your aspirational elements of, why you even work hard, right? You work hard to get a better life and all that. But your so-called better life, from a numbers perspective, is running away, like very quickly as compared to whatever that you actually get. It's not as much as your income growth and what have you. So as much we have income growth, yes, wage growth is clear, but the price growth is even clearer, right? So
that's why it's important to recalibrate or redefine what better life means. If you are always very stuck to this materialistic definition of a better life, then yes, that anxiety will follow you.
I agree. I don't disagree. Yes.
So I've recently been working on this youth dating culture project, right? And we went and spoke to all these young people about, whether they want to date, what they think of relationships, how they approach them, etc., right? And what I like about this project is that it's basically going upstream, seeing what's happening amongst the young, how they think about these things. These are people, before that kind of family formation stage. And what is interesting is that for them, they already are. So Anthea raised, time. They say that they don't have the time to date. They don't have the time to have a relationship. It's like a time management stress issue to contemplate going on a date or falling in love or that kind of thing. It's not that they don't want it, but they have that anxiety already from very young age. This came up again and again, and I thought to myself, hey, this is really weird, right?
Yeah, how busy can you be as a
also
kid?
like as a teenager and as a young person, the opposite sex was a big part. The point is that it your attraction is a big
natural,
part.
right?
It's a natural kind of part of what young people do. And I also decided, I was like, okay, I take that on board. I understand that this is how young people are feeling. But if we contrast that with the studies on time use, right? Teenagers in Singapore, they spend 5.5 hours every day on their phones not doing educational stuff. So then I think, oh, if I was 20 and spending that time, I also will have a time management problem because it's, I didn't have that. And this is not to be like, old person saying, oh, what are you guys doing on your phones?
Yeah,
It's
the
to
social
say,
media ban guy, is it?
it's to say that we have to fundamentally understand we live in a different time. And this goes to both of what they were saying. So when you talk about consumerism, ideas of what a good life is, it's harder for a lot of people to untether themselves from what they see online. Right? Because it's constantly, they are in that environment just, all the time. And they spend so much time in that environment, thinking about and being kind of inundated with ideas about what other people say is the good life, right? So then it becomes harder to sit down and think, well, what actually is a good life? And does it have to be, can I, given that I live in Singapore, this is the situation, things have very rapidly changed, right? So house prices changed rapidly. The price of goods changed rapidly with all the COVID shenanigans and whatnot, right? When you are in this kind of, this is the reality on the ground, right? And when people are faced with these multiple things, so it's not just about consumption, it's about time, it's about where we spend our time and what our influences are. 20, 30 years ago, people had a different set of influences that maybe made it easier for us to kind of reconfigure how we were feeling. I don't think we had quite as many opinions from people we didn't actually have a relationship with.
But I think this is such a good point that Kalpana raised, right? I mean, just like what Alex said, I think maybe, which is the work that I'm so called to do and continue to keep going. It's because of my own collapse, right? Because of my own personal barrage of depression, when everything I knew 20 years ago just completely was swept from under my feet. It allowed me to recalibrate. It brought the attention from just inside out to outside in, right? Or rather outside in to inside out. What is it that matters to me? That truly matters to me. And I think this is the part, whether it's at education level, going upstream, we're not taught that literacy. Right? We're not taught to ask ourselves that question. What is important? And I would argue that it's even more important today because of just to what Kalpana said. Everyone is giving you influences to what your life should be, who you should be. So I think that agency, that ability to reflect and confront yourself, what truly matters, is a really important way to confront this anxiety epidemic that we have. Because otherwise we're just basically with everything that's a herd instinct, we're also just feeding off each other's anxiety, right? As a people. And I think the other thing that we need to also change is the narrative, because the narrative shapes our emotions actually. And the narrative is we're never enough. Well, both as an official narrative, and look, rightly so, when we were first formed as a country, I'm 58, 2 years younger than Singapore, right? So which means that I have lived my whole life tracking pretty much the entire trajectory of Singapore. And I know the change we've gone through. So in the initial years, absolutely. Right, we had to, because effort is the only way. Hunker down, work hard, it's gonna be. But it was true, always not enough. But then we already have enough in the material sense to some extent. But that emotional narrative is still playing. Right? And so this is not getting into any sort of abstract discussion. This is really purely psychological. It's a very human state and condition that we don't address enough. And so we need to do more of coming together, this kind of conversations, but also we need to bring this into schools, into workplaces, and have these conversations bravely, genuinely. Are we seeing that we are chasing something that's not quite real because it was just from a past narrative, an old narrative, a very entrenched narrative that needs to be updated lah. Not to say we just go out and YOLO, just be reckless. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we need to.
Fun fact: we actually doubled our tax revenue in the past 5 years. So that the question then brings to like, how much more, right? Like, what more do you want? Because as you tax the system, you're actually taxing from the people, right? And the overall activity. So then how do we use this properly and make it work, right? So what is sufficient at all levels of this structure?
Well, I would make a counterpoint though, because CFO DNA coming back. Yeah, revenue double, but your expenditure will have more than double. Your healthcare will have more than double. And given the geopolitics, or after you've seen what happens to Ukraine, you probably need to more than double your defense spending in the same period over the same period of time to update your system so that at least you don't die, right? Otherwise, there's no SG100, right? So
Okay.
I think it's fine, right?
Okay, fair.
But it's true, Alex is right, some people are saying that, okay, yeah, the median income, right, so high. Of course, those who are struggling, because I also work with those, communities, they're like, wow, it makes them feel like I'm really behind. But also those who are actually kind of at that level, they also said, yeah, but showing this number makes it seem like, okay, we've done really well. But then, to Alex's point, everything else have also, and then there's also the real prices have gone, run away, but also the perception of opportunity cost. What have I had to give up to be able to make that $12,000? And that then, doesn't help in the way you feel about, oh dear, is this the life I'm going to have? And then the anxiety and the, and that worry and concerns or to stress or.
I wonder, right, if there's something about a change in our ability to, like, I pulled out something that a student wrote to me, and this was a comment that he actually asked our DPM, right? He said, I asked him about the width of expectations of young people the government seems to imply throughout its full range of government policy. We're all supposed to adapt to AI, constantly upskill, be okay with the lack of stability and economic circumstances going forward, be ready to constantly switch careers, adopt outward-looking perspective, all form relationships and start families in a timely manner, be ready to support an aging population and somehow drive 4 to 6% GDP growth all at the same time.
Sadly, it's adulting. It's a Singapore adulting, and
My point is that now, if you think back, so this comes from someone in the early 20s, right?
Yeah.
I ask you guys to think back to your own early 20s. Did you care about, like, were you immersed in this narrative? Was it kind of like, okay, I have to work hard, but working hard and kind of the grind and the hustle is just one small part of it. It's like we are all adopting a lot more like almost community and structural anxiety than maybe we are actually evolved to do. Right?
Yeah.
So it's one thing to kind of like, okay, in the last 6 years, we worked hard, we needed to work hard. But I would hazard a guess that most 20-year-olds in the past, they're not plugged into that anxiety in the same way.
One would argue, therefore, that this we first narrative might just add on that moral weight on the young people thinking, okay, we first, I shouldn't be selfish. I mean, I literally, my own goddaughter asked me, right? She's like, Godma, really, I'm so thankful. I'm so watched over. I've got a really generally comfortable life, but I think I need to do more. I have to, and that's more, and cannot complain. Feel like, you're not supposed to complain because there's this need to take care of everybody else, right? Part of it is obviously we were a bit more like a frog in the well back then because you only know what is going on outside of your own little small bubble if you read and you are exposed to it. But now, you like it or not, it's being, fed to you. Yeah, it's in your face.
Okay, whether you feel beholden to that narrative also is whether you allow it to sink into you. So, but that is also a function of upbringing, right? So I think because under your influence, your goddaughter will feel more we. I don't think my daughter care. So she won't feel beholden to that kind of narrative.
bo pian lah. I love that. Like, we're taking different, jabs at this whole why is it like that, right? Because I'm sure the problem is a lot more complicated than it all. So since I never thought that everybody will be kind of along the same vein in some ways, right? There's a lot of like rethinking what you want, redefining what is success, what is the good life, and choosing what matters to you and all that. So we talk about, okay, you need to continue to raise revenue so that you can meet the objectives of the future. And fundamentally, a lot of these things are tied to economic growth, tied to, GDP activity, tied to consumption, tied to all these stuff, right? So if you were PM, right, or if you if you get to kind of like make some decision, how do you reconcile this element of economic growth and self-sufficiency, right? Like this part where you can reframe what you actually need, and then your anxiety kind of just dissipates, right? Because you don't need all these things, don't need all the high and mighty, you don't need to chase all these crazy stuff, But if people at a wide level stop chasing, big dreams, big goals, big ideas, or buying things and all that in the modern day economic structure, then you're kind of slow down, right?
No, but you can sort of do it in a more nuanced way. So within Singapore, right, you can recalibrate your expectation to be less materialistic. But doesn't mean that for economic growth and security of the nation, because you need the economic growth to come with it, right? That you, okay, I'm being a very nasty person here now, to promote that same consumerism to other countries who you can make money out of. So you become the only sane one, that I'm selling a toxic idea, but so long as I don't believe in the same BS that I just sold. That's how the big economies make their mark, right?
So I don't disagree with a lot of the pointers, right? But I find this thought always quite puzzling. It's okay, if today we tell the people, okay, let's be sufficient, which is great, right? You will break off from your anxiety cycle, that thing. I think it's probably a perennial truth, right? So I agree with that. Then my question is, then what will motivate the middle class to work hard, right? What will make them kind of do the grind and make the progress, and then kind of go for that type of
because I think it goes back to your Maslow hierarchy of needs. I do think that technology would displace a lot of jobs, and therefore it would return a lot of people back to the survival layer, and I think that would probably become the next motivation of you working hard.
More anxious, huh?
No, because you just need to survive. You need to have a roof above your head for the younger generation.
I would agree to a large extent that conversation that you both are having. I don't think we need to see economic growth and well-being as either or. It shouldn't be that if you want economic growth, therefore you have to be prepared to give up well-being completely. It's yes and, right? If you want economic growth, and I think this is what PM, especially Lawrence, is clearly going towards. You see him talk about inclusive growth a lot. So that's not taking away growth. It's actually what is the kind of growth, I think, is to Alex's point, what is the nuance around this word growth that we continue to pound. I mean, look, my time when I was young, growth is just very clear law. It's just financial, right? But I think over time, you've got more structure. It's a lot richer, right? When you talk about growth, it cannot just be economic. It also cannot just be objective well-being when I talk about well-being. It also needs to take into consideration subjective well-being, right? And in doing so, I think that's why policymaking is becoming more and more difficult. And I think especially for us as a young nation, what we have achieved is in such a short time, right? So it's not as if we had hundreds of years to kind of go through experimentation, allow all of us to take a breather. Some more other countries got countryside, can go through all countryside become development, projects already. So cannot even go and just, so we don't have that space to breathe and to pace out and all of that. And I mean this in a way that I personally have lived it, right? As someone who's lived through this incredible growth period of 60 years. And so I think it comes back to, having the opportunity now that we are also with a fourth generation leadership, kind of aligning to, okay, this is our fourth generation that we're going into at Singapore. What is the conversation that no longer pits economic growth against well-being, right? Which is why I kind of want to say that there's a reason why MOF for the first time is releasing figures on wealth. For the first time, I mean, with us, every parliament MPs would ask, right? We know we used to have an inheritance tax. Why was it taken away and all of that? So it's fine. It's time to bring back, and I think we are mature enough to bring back that conversation. I want to hope that that's why MOF deliberately put out that that paper. Also, we're in a stable place, no need to do political footballing, partisan stuff. Like just build, like come together as a society, as a people to discuss some of these uncomfortable, difficult questions, which clearly have political nuances if we talk about it before election. So we need to talk about it, right? Because, I keep saying that if income pays bills, and income buys comfort, wealth buys and gives sleep. We all need to sleep better. If not, then our mental health has not gotten better. Since COVID, every number has pointed our mental health to have gone worse than COVID time. And so this is the time for us to talk about this lah. And it cannot be just the government making a decision for us. We need to, as a people, individually, at families, at communities, we need to start having that question. And also bring all the way back to school as well. Right? Have that conversation. Don't push. I sit on the board of a secondary school, and already we are asking them, hey, what career we wanna? And all the questions from the students are, this one will allow me to have this kind of life, this one, then we have to already start the conversation as young as when they are in their teens.
Basically, we have moved all these conversations upstream to our detriment, because it actually takes away the slack that is necessary to have a good life, because you need time to think, you need time to play. And I think that it's a kind of, as human beings, right? We have to, are we actually able to understand that life doesn't quite go in the exact way that the narrative tells us it's going to go? If you talk to anyone who is passionate about what they're doing, right? And probably creating growth along the way because they're passionate about what they're doing, they'll usually have some story like, I had this moment where everything collapsed. It was really, really bad. And then I rebuilt because I learned. But that's not the narrative we tell young people. We tell them, you need to stay on the path.
Yes.
Right? But that does not actually, it does not mesh with real life, how growth actually happens, because the people who can drive growth are people who have been through things. They have kind of
seen it.
Encouragement for people to take on more and more debt actually takes away the ability to experiment more, try more stuff.
Because you have got more risk. And I think this is why the well-being risk, we need to talk about it. I honestly think that if you look at how it's gone, I feel like that intergenerational well-being debt, we need to look at it, as part of economic policy, actually, as part of policy making. I know well-being sounds really broad. The breakdown is just, so many, and one of which you are clearly focusing so much time looking into. But that's so many other areas, right? Whether it's, and we shouldn't have this conversation separately, because then we are not informing, educating an entire people how to also look at this in a sort of holistic way as well. To your point, then
what I find really sad is that actually we have made great strides to kind of create more options, to create more paths for people, right? But somehow the narrative hasn't changed. It's like those options exist, but do people really want to take them? And how do you, recently I was at the Young S.R. Nathan Fellows lecture on youth mental health. And the questions are all about this sort of like, there's so much anxiety about education and the education system, and all the questions seem to be pointing towards that direction. And it's a kind of like, I feel like we have created this system where it's not just about you go to school, schooling and youth is a time where you do have the slack to imagine different futures. They are all caught up in how to pick the right future.
Curating, they're trying to curate their future.
They're trying to curate their future.
I love it when you say that everything's just moving upstream, right? So it's structural. It's like the anxiety is just passing down even tighter, even more, right? So yeah.
Also because now we have a lot more information, right, to start to go upstream. I think before you kind of just take whatever is being told to you, but so right, because now, I mean, I know I'm going a little bit, might be off track, but you just reminded me, Kalpana, that one of the key factors when youth are asked about their mental health, other than education, right? Study is a huge part. Yeah, academic progress and performance is a huge part. The other part is relationships. And so I want to come back to your point where you said they don't have time, they choose not to. I suspect is if they're time poor, they're like, okay, the academic performance is so important because it literally will chart my future. Then you give this up lah. Whether it's because of screen time, whatever. Even their screen time they spend just looking at what's the next thing to do to get into the best schools. And now the best schools ask you, I mean, one young person literally just last week just reached out to me, right? He's just finished at one of the elite schools, JC, and he's just spending all his time looking at all the top schools overseas that he would like to apply to. And part of it now is, okay, what is your statement of purpose? What have you done? All of that. And then, of course, that's no time for a relationship. Never mind that relationship is also a cause of their anxiety and well-being. So they're like, okay, this one, I haven't hacked it yet. I don't know what to do, right? So, but this one, at least I know if I put in this effort, maybe it'll get me somewhere. Because the relationship part was actually highlighted in a lot of studies as just as much of a cause of their anxiety as academic studies. So I think over time,
But it is protective. That's the thing. Relationships are protective
factors.
They help people who are in trouble.
Exactly.
So it's a very sad thing that you basically don't have time to invest in those things that are life-giving, that are protective. And let me tell you, it changes because part of the study that I was telling you guys about dating, right? We also talk to people who are a bit older, so like in their late 20s, 30s, right? It makes dating so stressful for them because now it's like they haven't had the experience of like being 15 and in love. It's like, I have to find the one. I have a checklist of all these things that this person, and it's the men and women are both like, they're like, there was this one guy who said it was a first date after meeting on a dating app, and the person he was sitting opposite literally had a checklist. And what was interesting was he said it made me feel like I was in school again.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
so the connection to me was very interesting.
That can be so triggering.
Right? It's like I'm not good enough because I don't, tick all the boxes. But the
cannot like a bit subtle, man. Use algorithm law.
I think that was a great conversation, but let's tune into the peak conversation, right? Which is this whole CPF adjustments. And I think it's an attempt to try to alleviate this like retirement anxiety, right? Which is for a lot of working professionals, that's like top concern, right? And not saying relationship not important now, like family now, all those you see people making their adjustments and all that. So those are also concerned, but retirement is the peak concern for a lot of working professionals. So recently in this budget, it's not confirmed yet, but it has teased that CPF is gonna create its own investment option, right, for the people, and it's so teased that the CPF team emailed me. So you know that it's real, it's gonna happen, right? It's just it's gonna come. It's just like as to the exact details, who is gonna be the provider at the back, all that one takes some time, and the final permutation, right? But it's already there, and it's we're already moving in that pathway, right? And some people tell me this has been 5 years in the making, right? So
in fact, more than that, I think the work group that recommended this, recommended it in 2016. So it's like a decade.
A decade in the making. Okay, great. Yeah. So now that's why I have you on the show, ma. Right. So can you tell us how did we come to here, and then like what is your view of it?
So retirement sufficiency is top of mind for everyone. So far the parameters that has been disclosed in this round of budget, directionally it is correct. So they focus on low cost investment option. And given that most people, especially when they're young, right, they have a bit more investment horizon or runway to take more risk. So this at the moment when you put money into your various CPF account or even CPF Life, you're effectively investing in a purely fixed income kind of asset allocation. And such allocation typically don't beat or don't meet inflation very well, right? So you need to have some meaningful allocation into growth assets to be able to do better. And if more of our population are able to invest their CPF money into these growth assets, right, then everyone will have a better nest egg, and it reduces the burden on other social related budget or other subsidies. So as a macro picture, it is good.
Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Right. So for example, a lot of people say that they cannot afford good food, good healthcare, or their insurance premium because maybe their MediSave account balance may not be growing as fast as they want, right? But if instead of growing at 4%, it can grow at 6 or even higher percentage, then affordability would be less of an issue. Then you would need less subsidy, or less people will get reverted back to B2 and C ward. Then you have less subsidy needed from the health ministry and things like that. So it's a good cycle if people have more money. Directionally, getting more people invested in this growth allocation is good. Because all remember that CPF investment scheme has been around for the longest time, right? And even during the period of 2020 to 2024, where stock market has rallied a lot, right? CPF stats still shows that 43% of those people who choose to take their money out from their normal accounts into CPF IS can't even meet 2.5% per annum, right? So giving people more choices may actually be counterproductive.
It's a fallacy.
Right. So this latest parameter where they say that they only give you 2 to 3 choices so that you don't get too confused, right? Simplify stuff. I think therefore it's a good direction that we're heading towards.
So it's kind of like CPF Life, right? It's like standard, escalating, you know, you have a few options and that's it.
In terms of simplicity, I hope that they achieve that. But what it worries me now is that I don't know whether when they say low cost, are they only focusing on low ongoing fund management charge? Right. I'm worried that because there's some investment risks involved, then they will start to involve the financial advisors industry and therefore add another layer of distribution cost and commission to this scheme. It would then negate the low cost narrative. I would even go as far as saying that if CPF Board cannot design this new scheme, similar to CPF Life, where people can just go to CPF Board's website, go through the FAQ, go through the calculator, can already make a decision, and they need someone else to come and intervene and pay the additional commission, I think it's a failure in the design. Today, within CPF, you also have a large core of volunteers who help people who, even after reading the FAQ and calculator, still cannot
very active
understand.
One at this volunteer core.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So if you cannot tap on that and you still have to pay additional fees to get people on board this scheme, I think then the design will have an issue.
Okay. So just on that note, right, can you describe the ideal form in your head then?
The ideal form in my head is that for whoever that has a long investment horizon, and in my opinion, at least if you have 20 years horizon, right, you should have at least like half of your allocation to growth assets.
Okay.
Right.
And that would mean equities, you know? Okay.
So that's why the other worry is that they are saying that, okay, as you grow older and older, right, the percentage allocation to growth assets would reduce over time. It goes more defensive because you have less ability to take risk. But according to the Department of Stats information, for anyone who have reached 65 years old, on average, they still have another almost 20 years of life expectancy left. So if this new scheme is designed such that you revert back to a full cash or full fixed income allocation at age 65, I do think that it is premature. You should still let people, let's say, transfer these amounts that they have grown within this new life cycle scheme, move that balance into the, let's say, CPF Life Plus. So basically, you use a different investment chassis to generate a higher level of income, right? So I think that would be more beneficial to everyone. In fact, when you look at CPF Life today, you're already doing something like that. Your CPF Life is invested into this thing called the Special Singapore Government Securities, and then GIC would invest those money on your behalf. And GIC is already having 50% allocation to growth assets by pooling everyone's longevity or risk and also their ability to buffer risk at late life stages. So why can't you continue to maintain that high allocation to growth assets, even when people reach retirement?
Okay, fair. So if you don't agree, you can comment in the comment section.
Welcome.
Then you can attack him lah. But this is an ongoing conversation. Nothing is set in stone. So I mean, we're not just asking you, we're asking quite a few people to share their point of view. How do you think we should do it and all that? And I see.
In fact, the other wish list is I have right is that today CPF Life is the best fixed guarantee return annuity you have in the market. No insurers can offer the same. Yeah, so with this new upgraded version of the life cycle fund, right, which is a good thing, you should not cap how much the citizens want to put in. Because at the moment, your CPF Life, you are capped by your enhanced retirement sum of around 400K. Right, and you have this movement of 1,065,000, right? So if people do have 1 million in their CPF and they really want to benefit from this good scheme that government has provided, just let them put the 1 million. Somehow it doesn't add to your government budget for you to open that up. So why not?
So why not actually?
What do we think might be the reason why there's a cap, right, to the retirement sum? Because I'm obviously post 55, looking into all of this, 7 years away from taking that, as you said, the
There's
CPF
always this
life.
older, maybe 2G-ish kind of philosophy that we always need to
This one
let free market play.
Blame 2G.
Exactly, because one of the things that I was discussing with, my contemporaries, of course, we are all in that space, right? And when you look out to the market, you're like, no one is going to give you this level of risk profile at 4% or 4.5, right? Which is what the retirement account for all of us post 55 we have. Yes, you can't take it out. But if this is actually extra that you are looking to invest anyway, and you're willing to give up that liquidity, right? And be guaranteed of that 4.5. Yeah, we want to go beyond the enhancement sum of enhanced retirement sum of 440,000 at the moment. But you can't. Right. So I think I think Alex is onto something, but I think why not is because obviously there is this marketplace you need to protect. Because then you will have a hollow out of folks like yours truly, not like I'm super don't come and scare me. Not like there's a lot, but after working for so long and the MNC experience, so you have that. But a lot of us would then take, right now, especially interest rates is so abysmal, right? You just take everything and put it there, and you don't want to disrupt the market that way. And so I am, I think as much as, of course, I raise issues where government policy is concerned, it is not lost on me that it's such a difficult role to play where you kind of want to encourage market mechanics to work to its best state, but at the same time you need to be interventionist, right, as well, because we are such an open market. We're also such a small population. One small little shock wave just can. So it's exactly that They cannot hollow out the investment market because the institution will kind of hump you. Why you government, you then allow everybody to put in your retirement account, then where is there left for us to play with in liquidity and all that?
Invest the family office money?
No, exactly, which is also happening, to be fair, right? So that part is also being worked out, so we understand.
For me, I just think it would be like, if we want to say that, people should be allowed to put like their $1 million in, kind of have to understand in much better detail the flip side and what the risks of that might be, because the fact of the matter is, kind of like the basic financial advice 101 is this sort of as you get older, you adopt a lower risk profile, and that's there for a reason.
No, but if the risk is being shared by the rest of the population who are in the same age group as you, then I think it collectively allows all of us to take a bit more risk.
Yeah, because of the risk pooling, right?
The risk pooling
But
effect.
I also will say that it's not always the case. That's a very kind of the usual economic principle, other things being equal, everybody will think this way, right? But actually it's not. If you think about it, the flip side also says that with the world that's so volatile and uncertain, and 2050 to a lot of young people is ominous, right? Everything's going to burn. Why would you say that I have more risk appetite compared to like my mom. My mom should go and put all her money because, hey, she's going to be gone when 2050 come. So we also cannot not consider some of these basic guiding principles of financial investment, economic calibration, right, and structuring without also, to Kalpana's point, we are living in a different world to 20 years ago. So the policy making and some of the economic principles, we also need to challenge some of it. I remember Dad, after he came off being stomach cancer and was given a year, but then he made it. That was 28 years ago. He's still around. It's actually a curious case. He's healthier than before. Yeah, I know. But after 1 year, he never would use cash for anything. Certainly not to buy a car. He did. He's like, doctor gave me a year. I'm still around. 2 years later, I'm gonna buy cash buy a car with the cash. You know what I mean? So there's a lot more risk appetite because of a certain outlook of life that's quite different from the young. And we know if the youth today is feeling this, overwhelming sense of, this is all happening, maybe their risk appetite is not necessarily higher, right? Because that could be an assumption and then it's made on behalf of them.
But that is a function of how much you want them to contribute to the CPF system, right? So they could have been given more leeway to play. Let's say maybe at the earlier years, they don't put in so much, right? Especially with the higher expected growth rate of that pot of money, arguably some people would say that actually I can lower my CPF contribution now.
Yes.
Because I can reach the same number with a lower contribution today.
Well done. That's another way of looking at it, right? But also, I think alongside, we're also assuming that everybody know what is going on with. That's why what you're doing here, Reggie, is very important.
Thank you.
In terms of financial literacy, right? Because I think, we all assume that everybody understands all that we're talking about here. With the kind of time poverty that everybody has, we cannot assume that people understand, what we are talking about in terms of, the risk appetite, risk profiling, life stage, life cycle investment. Yeah.
And to me, that's exactly why I think the policy is in the right direction. Because after doing this thing for so long, there's a normal curve and there's only a small bunch of people that care about all these things, right? For the many other people with, all these other priorities, right? And then you give them a marketplace, right? They have no basis to select. Right, and so oftentimes the CPF reports say they underperform, right? So instead
of
on
to anxiety, I guess
it's
so
one
many
more
of
thing
them
to
saying,
care about. It's one more thing to worry about.
And you feel so gaslit. You're like, hey, actually, I went to university. How come I don't understand all of these things that everybody else seems to be doing?
So I think it is this. It's not just a financial thing, but it's also a structural shift, right? Because there's also that whole part about SkillsFuture changing its website. Although it sounds very stupid, just changing a website, but in some ways, they are trying to change the methodology of how you discover the program that works for you.
It's behavioral nudges,
exactly.
So it's not just narratives and design thinking. It's also behavioral change that you're trying. And updating is very important because we have new behaviors that we didn't have before because we didn't have screen. I was climbing trees and just jumping.
It's true. So I think this is also showing that the government of the day is willing to move down the other path. It's not just a...
This would be the one thing because this is actually the life cycle scheme is actually taking the wealth inequality, right? Or that it might actually be increasing, with this scheme. Structurally, you are making sure everybody gets a good shot in wonderfully enjoying the eighth wonder of the world, compounding interest, right? We all know that. But also, when we have that compounding interest, we also then maybe address the compounding anxiety, right? Because anxiety also compounds like interest. So, if we take care of that, then that's... But we have to narrate. I agree with all of you. I think we still need to bring about that awareness to the general public. And we can't just all be passive anymore. As much as you say, okay, it's only, a small group that understand how to sort of work around it.
No, I don't think it's telling people to be passive, right? It's just trying to making it simpler, more directionally, similar. And don't indulge in this idea that everybody knows the best choice, right? And then
or just leave it to the government to take care of me.
Yeah. So kind of simplify it. In some ways, having the state take some responsibility, on this front.
Very important, by the way, for well-being. The sense of agency and control and ownership, can make quite a bit of difference to the well-being.
At one point, as we were talking about skills future, and this is a point, like a reaction I had very strongly when I was listening to the budget speech, right? They said, why have we limited this whole, like, you know how they're going to give people people who do AI courses on skills future the ability to have to pay to use the paid version of ChatGPT for 6 months, right? I listened to that, I'm like, why are you limiting it? Why not let everyone use their skills future fund to go and buy the paid version and play around with it? Because this is how we learn. You don't learn in a course. You learn, like, as an ethnographer, if you actually go and watch what people do, it's that kind of like private space to play and make mistakes. And we have skills future there, right? Like, not everyone will have the time to do an AI course.
I totally agree.
But everyone could use their skills future funds to buy the paid version and play a little bit, figure it out.
Very important. You see, that's why. So make sure one of the MPs raise this in COS. But also, I think as much as we have Skills Future to support our AI narrative, please make sure Skills Future also have a narrative to take care of our mental health, well-being. What are some of the skills that's needed that could actually help address some of that? As much as skills are important, don't just look into the hard and technical skills, look at the life skills, right? We need, and if skills is what, and I agree, we definitely need to upgrade our skills, keep growing, have more learnings in the area of being able to take care of yourself better and your people and the people around you, right?
Since you took a little tangent on that, I'm going to just throw this in, right? Just for the one MP that will pick it up somehow, right? Right? You know, for a long time, I do agree with it. I was always telling some of these people, like, you know, we have this library thing, right? This National Library Board that is great at managing, you know, borrowings and all that, right? And then there are all these equipment out there that are so expensive that people cannot afford. Just tell NLB to go and manage this thing, lah, right? Like, then people can get to play around, they learn new things, they test it out. And I think that's the best way to learn, right? And not about like another course, right? Because we have a structure that can allow people to play, you know, and then test it out, right? So, but I think the Pongo library is a little bit better, right? So that's something to be said. Okay, so great. I hope you don't become more anxious after listening to this. You know, ultimately our goal is to
Then
try
we
to
should all breathe, actually, before we end.
Breathe, yeah. Ultimately, I think for a lot of the middle class, the pursuit of the good life will be a continuum, but I hope that we can then kind of pat the edges a little bit, make it easier for people to, you know, feel safer so that they can take more risks in some shape or form. And then I think that's what society needs to get us to break out to the next level and not just always be the cheaper, faster, better, you know, like space for the foreign companies. So yeah, with that, I hope you had a great time today, and we'll see you in the next week's episode. I think this will be our last budget special, and then we'll go back to regular programming. So thank you. I hope to see you next year. Meanwhile, take care. Bye-bye.